Yeah, we're live. We are
Okay.
live. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It's a great day. I'm super excited to be here again. Uh, I want to start by welcoming everyone to this platform, this FFM platform today. Yeah, my name remains Tayo Steven. My co-host today, Adetokunbo. You're welcome. Um,
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. So, if you are just joining us, please let us know where you are joining us from. And how you do that is by putting your name in the chat box and then your name and where you are joining us from so we can acknowledge your presence. So, a few people have been joining us now. So, just a brief why are we doing this? Sheyi, welcome. Where are you joining us from, Sheyi? So, tell us where you are joining us from, your name and where you are joining us from. Okay, yeah, we've seen brilliant student fail the ICAN exam. Brilliant student, I mean. So after each exam, we try to reach the students, and some say, look, the student that I taught before the exam, I was coaching them, I was teaching them, we'll go into the exam, or they will pass, I will fail. Not be juju be that. So, well, maybe maybe it's not juju, but I want to say it's not juju. So basically, we're going to look at some of the reason why you can go into the SFM classes, the exam, even when you are well prepared and you still fail the exam. Okay, Sinla say I can't hear you. Yeah, I guess Adetokunbo, you can hear me, right? Sheyi is from Kaduna.
Yes, I can.
So if you can, yeah. So please refresh your browser, Sinla, if you cannot hear me. Then Woyegutan. Woyegutan. I hope I pronounce you well from Yenugua. So how is Yenugua today? Okay, so please tell us your name and where you're joining us from. We'll try our best to keep this within 1 hour today. Yes, which is 90 minutes. So if you can't hear, just refresh. So we're going to go through quite a lot. We've spoken with the examiner, and the examiner have given us idea, tips, and all the rest, and things that the students are missing. All right, you can hear now. Thank you very much for that feedback. So let's know where you are joining us from, your name, and where you are joining us from, please, so that we can acknowledge you. All right. Ijagbe me Daniel from Abuja. So how is Abuja today? I hope you have been able to go and say hello to our president. Those of you in Abuja, hope you are seeing the president every day. Oluwakemi is from Lagos. You are welcome. Rukayat Alabi from Abuja. You are welcome. How is Abuja today? We're having quite a good number from Abuja. So please put your name in the chat box and where you are joining us from. Henry is from Warri. How is Warri? Sinla, yes, sir. You're welcome. So I'll be acknowledging you as you join. Put your name there and where you're joining us from. So Faith is from Lagos. Welcome, Faith. Amaka from Lagos. Welcome, Amaka. So we'll go right into business, and Ade Tokumba will be giving half of the presentation. I'll be doing half of mine as well. So Ade Tokumba, over to you, please. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself and then share your screen as well. All right. So the table is yours. The floor is yours.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Strategic Financial Management uh, webinar jam. And of course, what we do here is basically to just give you some tips on how to pass the forthcoming exam. But let me start by claiming a disclaimer that this is not our usual SFM live class that we used to have after the diet is over. Of course, as many of us may know that the diet is still on, and of course we have just few more weeks to the end of this diet. So this is not the usual life class that we used to have, but we just thought it was that it's just better for us to give us some tips, because the truth is, if you don't understand the question, then providing solution to the question might be something that will be extremely difficult for you to do. So we need to understand, where is the examiner coming from? What does the examiner really want us to do? And that is when we are able to answer the question effectively. Please confirm that you are hearing me. I want to believe that everyone can hear me.
I can hear you, and we are not in the same room, so we are not in the same location. So I can confirm I can hear you. So
Okay,
every other
okay.
person is hearing us too.
Okay, okay, that's fine, perfect. Okay, so what we are going to be doing this afternoon is we're going to be looking at some tips on on the way ICAN can structure their question, especially when we talk about SFM. I know I remember then when I was writing my exam, there used to be a slogan that one of my friends would say that once you are able to pass SFM, then you are good to go for the rest of the exam, because people believe that say I can say SFM. What that means is that SFM is the only exam that embodied ICAN. So we have magnified this paper so much that we even find it difficult to even embrace that there are other challenging courses. But I used to tell students that, well, I passed SFM, I think once or twice, but the truth of the matter is it is not as difficult as we all paint it to be. It's just a matter of understanding the strategy behind each question. So without much ado, I'll be sharing my screen now for us to see some things that we have put together to say that when I can ask you a particular question, how how is it expected of you to address them? What are the things that we expect you to say? How do we expect you to tackle the question? So, and that's what we're going to be doing in the next few minutes before I hand over to Mr. Stephen to take some other useful tips that I might have missed in the course of my presentation. So, of course, our learning topics, we're going to be looking at, the first thing we're going to be looking at, effective time management. How do we manage our time effectively in the course of the exam? Then also we're going to be reviewing, and we need to understand and analyze question requirements carefully. That is when we hear something, what is it expected us to do? And then lastly, we're going to see how do we structure our marks such that it earns us, how do we structure our answers, so that earns us more marks. So that's the third thing that we're going to be looking at this afternoon. So let's start from the first one, effective time management. Effective time management. Sorry, just a second. Oh. Oh no, don't worry. We'll get there. We'll get there with time. So first one talks about understanding the question. So of course, these are ways by which ICAN can ask us questions. Even in SFM, I understand that SFM most times has to do with pure. Most times we're asked to calculate, compute, analyze, interpret. But all these things are also important. I remember then also while I was studying for this SFM exam, I used to have students that would tell me that, you know what, we don't need to focus on the written aspect of SFM. And I tell them that is one of the reasons why people get to fail, because we focus more on the calculation part of it. We forget that there are also situations where I can expect us to analyze. And one of the things, if you have studied the trend of ICAN question, especially when it comes to SFM, you would have noticed that what carries more mark is the part where we expect you to interpret. So you would have noticed that the exam has gone beyond the phase where we just ask you to calculate, give formula, because all those formulas are available at the back of the question paper. So we know the formula, but we believe that as a chartered accountant, you should be able to explain, you should be able to interpret your result to someone that is not even an accountant. And that is what it means. That is when we can say that you truly understand what you are saying. So beyond the formulas, beyond the almighty formula, beyond the black model formula, beyond the black schools, we need you to be able to understand and interpret your result. So that is why we are looking at all these things step by step. When they say analyze, what do they mean? Now, you can hear something like apply. When they say you should apply, what are they trying to say? When they say you should assess, what does it mean? When you say you should compare, and of course, all of these. So the first one, apply. When you are asked to apply, what does it mean? So exam requirements. This entails putting into action the law requirements in a given case scenario. You are going to relate the authorities you have used with the facts of the case. So let me give you, so let's look at this exam type question that says that Tade is the managing director of Shepo Timo Enterprises, and she also doubles as the CFO because of her vast knowledge in finance. So applying the code of corporate governance, advise study on the best practice. So these are some written questions that may come up in your examination, maybe to say maybe 1A or 1B or 1C. I know the earlier part of SFM, there are times that they will have given you a question that carries like 25 marks. So let me use capital structure as an example. So you have a capital structure question that carries 25 marks, especially in your compulsory question. You can have this question to say maybe a 5 marks question. And if you don't know what you are meant to say, yes, you might have gotten the whole 25 marks, but you lose these 5 marks. And as much as possible, you'll all agree with me that in SFM, you need every mark that you can get, because you can't afford to lose any mark when you are dealing with SFM. So it is very important applying the code of corporate governance. This question says an advice study on the best practice. So when you hear the word apply, you are meant to give the scenario itself. So what does the law say? What does the corporate governance say? Then you now apply it to the case of Tade. That is when you must have done justice to the question. So when you hear the word assess, what does it mean? This entails determining the strength, the weakness, the importance, the significance of the question. So look at this question, for example, that says that assess the impact of non-financial, ethical, and environmental issues on the achievement of primary financial objectives, such as the maximization of shareholders' wealth. If you look at this question, if you don't even know what it means to assess, there is no way you will be able to answer this question. So when you hear the word assess, we're not saying that the system is good. We're not saying that the environmental issues has affected the shareholders either positively or negatively. We're not saying that environmental issues is bad in itself, but what we want you to do is to evaluate. At times you hear this word evaluate, so they are trying to mean the same thing. So when you hear the word evaluate, you hear the word access, trying to give the strength and the weakness. So if you find yourself in this scenario in the examination hall, don't just focus on the strength. Try to balance it. Give us the strength, give us the weakness. As little as it seems, it can help you to go a long way. Of course, you agree with me that somebody that scored 49 over 100 is not the same thing as somebody that scored 50 over 100. That 1 mark means that the person that scored 49 will take it again the next diet. When you hear the word analyze, what does it mean? This entails breaking the question into separate parts. Of course, this one can come in various forms. You can have it in your calculation form. You can have a question on capital structure, for instance. That is what comes to mind at the moment. So if you have a question on capital structure and you are asked to evaluate the position of the company, whether they should finance the company using debt or equity or a combination of both. So what are you supposed to do? When you're analyzing, you will have to go through this process one by one. So I said this entails breaking the question into separate parts. Ensure you discuss and interpret each part. So when you hear the word analyze, tell us when the business is being financed by debt, what is the implication? When it is financed by equity, what is the implication? So that is why you will notice that if you have a 40 marks question and the examiner wants you to analyze, they will, first of all, the A part of that question, they can tell you to use debt. They can say using debt at what would be the shareholders' return. They can now tell you that using equity, what will be the shareholders' return. So they can now say CPAT advise the shareholder. So you will see that your A part might not carry more than 5 marks, your B part might not carry more than 5 marks, your C part might carry 20 marks, because that is where the question really dwells. Let me move on because of our time. Of course, when you are asked to calculate, what does that mean? Calculate the coupon rate. This is an example. It means that this entails computing using mathematical process of determining the value of an outcome. This is where your formulas play in. When you are asked to calculate the coupon rate that PT will have to pay on these bonds in order to satisfy the investors. You can also get a question you can also get a question that says, using the CAPIM, GAP PLC, calculate the GAP PLC cost of capital as at 31st December 2019. Here, you are expected to show some workings. When you hear the word calculate, and I used to tell students that when you are asked to calculate, it is important you have your formula at your fingertip. And thankfully enough, ICAN is so kind that at the back of your question paper, you have some formulas. Black-Scholes model is there. You have your capital structure, a bit of it is there. You have your WACC, a bit of it is there. So if you're asked to calculate, the first thing you should state is the formula. State the formula that leads to that particular question before you now start attempting the question. When you are asked to comment, I think I've said that when I was trying to explain the word analyze. When you are asked to comment, I said that comment is what carries the bulk of the mark. So the calculation might not carry more than 5 marks, where your comment will carry 20 marks. Why? Because if you might have crammed the formula, but I can't believe that you can't cram the comment. It's either you know it or you don't know it. And if you know it, you will be able to so one of the things we are testing in SFM is your ability to test, it's your ability to speak and express yourself in the language that somebody that is a non-accountant will be able to understand and comprehend. So if I see your report as SFM student, as a chartered accountant, I should be able to use it even when I am not an accountant. Another one is compare. When you hear the word compare, what happens? What are they expecting you to do? So this entails explaining the similarities and differences when you are asked to. So for instance now, of course, we know IRR and APV. When you want to determine if a project is worthwhile or not, you have NPV. NPV was where we started from. Later we graduated to IRR. Now we have APV, adjusted present value. So if you look at it, they can tell you that comparing the two. So when you hear the word compare, that means you tell us the feature of some, tell us the feature of the other. What are the characteristics of IRR? What are the characteristics of APV? Of course, before NPV, of course, I believe that we know that it's not only IRR and APV or even NPV that we use in determining the worthwhile of a project. We have what we call profitability index and all of those things. So when they say you should compare, look at the two. I know one makes use of the time value of money, while the other one does not consider the time value of money. That's where you have your ARR, accounting rate of return, that does not consider the time value of money. So you have to compare the two and look at it. What are the perks of one? What are the loopholes of the other? When you hear conclude, what does it mean? When you hear conclude, it entails your answer. This entails ending your answer well in case scenario. So the examiner will usually be silent on this, but it will be expected that you include this in your answer. I'm sure that if you've not had the webinar on case study, I know that the lecturer will also do the lecturer will also do justice to this. But it is also applicable in SFM, and I thought it was to mention it, that when you are asked to conclude, usually the examiner will not tell you to conclude. But when you are giving your analysis, where you will have to analyze, when you are, I said that this is what will carry the majority of your mark. So by the time you are analyzing, at the end of it, try to conclude. You can use the word such as in conclusion. You can use the word to say that the summary of all this is that So with this, the examiner knows that truly you know what you are saying, and you are truly familiar with the concept. So try to conclude so that at least there will be a takeaway for the examiner. So when you hear the word criticize, what does it mean? Exam requirement. This entails analyzing the situation to identify all the weakness, the problem that exists. I said, do not explain the situation. So this one means that when you are asked to criticize, don't tell us anything good about the concept. So for instance, now ARR is no longer in use, so to say. Yes, some companies still do use it, but in reality, for proper analysis and scrutinizing, most companies has dumped ARR. We now use MPV and APV and IRR in some cases to evaluate if a project is worthwhile. And in that case, let's say we're now telling you to criticize the use of ARR, don't tell us anything positive about ARR. Yes, I know that there are some things that are good about the concept itself, but in this question, what they're expecting you to do is that tell us everything that will not make an organization want to use ARR as a concept for determining if a project is worthwhile or not. So criticize the view of managing director on the proposition of the merger and acquisition. So of course, if you're asked this question, I believe you know what to do. Define mergers and acquisition, then analyze the situation and tell us why the managing director should not go there. So define. When you are asked to define, what does that mean? It means giving meaning to the question. Ensure to keep it short and relevant. You may not need more than 2-3 sentences when you are defining. I've seen students, when they are asked to define, they now start writing stories. You don't need it in definition. When you're asked to define a concept, define it, at most include one more sentence just to back up your definition, just to tell the examiner that truly you've not crammed your answer. So that's that. Describe. When you hear the word describe, what does it mean? It means the details. This entails giving a detailed account of qualities or features. So you can imagine we say something like AAA model is one of the model in corporate governance. Describe the pre-conventional concept of the model. So when you are asked to describe, of course, I know that this question is not common when it comes to SFM, but at times we don't just want to take chances. We may have this question in the exam. So discuss. When you hear the word discuss usually will come with a calculation question. So look at it now. We said discuss whether the actual share price is likely to be equal to the theoretical X right price. This was a question we picked from the ICAN Pathfinders. So, and what does it mean when they ask you to discuss? It entails examining in details using arguments about the pros and cons of an issue. This is usually a standalone question in the exam. Usually when they ask you to discuss, because the examiner really wants to hear you express yourself. He wants to see you, want to read you, he or she wants to read your expression. So it will usually give you more time. So it might be a question that carries, let's say, 20 marks, usually in section B. So that one means that you have a whole lot to say about. So as much as you know about that particular concept, please go ahead and write it. So if you ask this kind of question now, I will expect you to link it back to your IAS 33, earnings per share. Tell us what you know about earnings per share. Give us the theoretical X right price as explained by IAS 33. Evaluate. When you hear the word evaluate, what does it mean? It entails determining the scenario in the light of the argument for and against. Ensure you mention evidence to support your evaluation. So that is the word. So when you hear the word evaluate, please do well. Give us scenarios to back up what you are saying.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Tokumbo. Just before you continue, a few more people have joined. So Bukola, hope we'll be having a recording. Yes, Bukola. If you are in our Telegram class, we're going to post the link there for you to have the recording there. So please make sure you share the link to others who are not able to join. So if you are just joining us, because quite a number of people have just joined, please let's have your name and where you are joining us from in the chat box. The chat box is by your right-hand side if you are using the desktop computer. And if you are using the mobile app or you are using the phone, then it will be below the screen that you are seeing here. So let's have your name and where you are joining us from so that we can acknowledge you for those of you that are just joining. All right. So just Amaka. Yeah, Amaka, thanks so much. Amaka joined us from Lagos. Faith, Faith says she's joining us from Lagos as well. Yeah, Oluwakemi, we're not asking for your email. We're saying when you join the Telegram class, and we already have your email if you registered for this webinar. For you to get here, obviously we have your email already. So please don't post your phone number or email here so that yeah, so that you won't get your information hijacked from you. All right, Adewale Samuel from Lagos. We have a lot of Lagos people here today. Stella from Jos. Stella Amaka from Jos. Welcome, Stella. And then we have Mercy Ono from Zaria. Hi, Zaria today. John from Akwa Ibom. Where in Akwa Ibom are you joining us from, John? Welcome all the same. Then we have Sherim from Abeokuta. Okay, so let me hand over to Adetokunbo. Yeah, Adetokunbo.
Okay.
So as you join, I will be acknowledging you as you go. I will come back and do that. So please continue. Take care.
All right, thank you, sir. So the next one talks about outlining. When you are asked to outline, what are you expected to do? So this question talks about this entails explaining the highlighted points stated. So we can see a question that says that outline the advantages and disadvantages of the two alternative sources of raising the 560 million naira. So this was an extra from a question, one of the case study questions that we have in the past. So I'm sure this kind of question must have asked the student to explain the debt source of finance and the equity source of finance. So we can now see, so now the question is now saying that outline the advantage and disadvantage of using debt source to raise the 560 million or of using equity to raise the 560 million. When you are asked to highlight, please try as much as possible to make your points, to state your answers in bullet points. So A, what is it? B, what is it? C, what is the advantage? So if you, let's say you want to give us, and if you are not asked, I think I should say this, that if they didn't tell you to, maybe they didn't say, what's it called, outline 5 advantages, or let's say they say outline 10 advantages or this. So if they are silent on the number that they are expecting you to mention, please mention at least 5 where you can. I know that there are some questions that they will ask you that the point under it, even in the study part, or maybe what you see even in the, what's it called, in our video lecture is not up to 5. That is acceptable. Probably the concept is just a new one, and then we've not been able to research more points under that concept. But in a case where you can, please, as much as possible, don't give the examiner less than 5. Don't give the examiner less than 5 so that you can have more marks. So when you are asked to prepare, so this is the last slide. After this, I really want us to delve more into time requirement, how to manage your time. Time management is key, especially when you are dealing with SFM. One of the strategy of SFM is that we want to see how well can you manage your time as a chartered accountant. But not to digress, let's come back here. We're talking about prepare. Understanding the question, when they tell you to prepare, what does the examiner mean? So this entails setting out a response using an appropriate format that suits the situation at hand. This is usually found in case study scenario. It is similar to drafting a report based on a particular scenario given. So exam time question can be that prepare a report that gives an estimate of Zin score using asset-based valuation, price earning ratio, dividend-based valuation. Here you are preparing a report, and when you are preparing a report, yes, I know we have it more in case study, but ICAN, especially in the 40 marks question, anything and everything is possible. I used to tell my students that anything and everything is possible, especially in the compulsory question of in SFM. So they can tell you to prepare a report. When they tell you to prepare a report, the first thing you do is to prepare your calculations and then tag them as appendix. The appendix is what you will link your report with. So in that case, when you say you should prepare a report, of course, there are formats that are necessary for you to prepare a good report. I know we will touch base on that in our Telegram class. So recommend. When they say you should recommend, what does that mean? Exam requirement. This entails giving advice. Exam type question could be recommend with reasons, a value or range of values that PT might be for Zinco. Recommend to GAP PLC board on which source of finance should be used. Recommendation is where most times recommendation can carry like 5 marks, 7 marks, because they believe that at times maybe you have done your job and they know that. And one thing about recommendation I must say is that once your calculation is wrong, your recommendation will also be wrong, because your recommendation is based on what you have done in A, B. Most times recommendation come as part D, maybe 2A, 2B, 2C. So you've done all your work. So if everything you've done is wrong, your recommendation will also be wrong, because your recommendation is expected to be based on your calculation. So don't do your calculation and now recommend using another scenario. No. So you should recommend based on what you have prepared in your report. It is very, very essential.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adetokunbo, for the presentation. We want your feedback, please. If you are following us, please leave us an emoji, a feedback on the comment section. So I want to acknowledge the presence of Miriam from Abuja. Miriam, you are welcome. Bukola is asking, when is AAA and CR webinar? Usually we'll inform you in the live class, in the Telegram class. So you might just go there and get the link there. But if you are not on our Telegram class, we'll let you know you will see the phone number that you will contact just before we finish now. Therefore, so that if you want to get the link for AAA, CR, or any other one that we have not yet run. So, but meanwhile, thank you, Adewale, for that one. It seems you are the only one enjoying this class. Peter is from Abuja. We have a lot of people from Abuja today. Welcome. Father Yomi is from Port Harcourt. How is Port Harcourt today? John from Ikotek Bene. Good. Thank you, Clement, for the top up. All right. So I hand you back to Adetokunbo. So we want to try our best to make sure that we wrap up this within an hour, as much as we can. So because we're not answering the question like you have seen, we're just explaining what the requirements of this question can be. All right, Adetokunbo, back to you.
All right, thank you, sir. So next we're talking about effective time management. Like I said, one of the strategy in SFM is for us to know how well are you able to manage your time. Because the first question, especially the compulsory question, from experience, most students waste a lot of time answering this question, and lo and behold, they don't still get the required mark for you to pass the exam. So that's why most times it gets frustrating, because most students believe that it's a must I attempt question one, especially to make sure that I get my whole 40 marks. But let me bust your bubble that you might not be able to get that 40 marks if you waste so much time on it. Because the truth is, there's a saying that if you really know what you are meant to do, you don't have to waste much time on it. That is just so. If you're seeing yourself wasting time on a particular question, it just simply means that you don't know at that moment, or maybe you can't recall what the examiner is trying to ask. So let's see some tips that are necessary when you are answering your question. Of course, the syllabus will be assessed in 3 hours of paper plus 15 minutes of reading time. The question will be in 2 sections as follows. Section A will be 40 marks and usually a case scenario, which will be expected to test critical thinking skills, your ability to draft a good report. So this question will be drawn definitely from different sections of the syllabus. So this is where students waste more time, because they want to get the whole 40 marks, and this is not advisable for someone who really wants to pass the exam. Remember what you need. I'm not saying that you should go into the examination hall with the mindset that you want to score 50 over 100, but the pass mark is 50. So if you wasted your whole time looking for 40 in section 1 alone, then what happened to section B and section C? And the truth is, you can't get all the whole 40 marks. You can only get some. So the earlier you realize that, the better your chances of passing the exam, the paper. Section B will be 5 questions of 20 marks each, out of which candidates will be expected to attempt 3 questions, that is 60 marks. The 5 questions will come from all the 4 sections of the syllabus based on the weights attached to each section in the syllabus. Of course, I know that you must be, you know that each section of the syllabus has the weight, so there are some that carries more weight than the other where you're expected to focus. Your approach to planning your time in the exam is very crucial, and I know Mr. Stephen will also say 1 or 2 things on that for completing the exam and to ensure the best use of the time available. Make sure you read the instructions preceding the question before attempting the question. Most times we see students jumping into questions because maybe you just see the concept and it's something you have read prior to the exam. So I used to tell students, don't assume that you know a question, not until you fully understand what the requirement of the question is saying. If you do that, you will just see yourself getting your fingers burnt. So if you don't want to do that, please read the instruction very well, get acclimatized to what the examiner is trying to tell you to do, and it is on that basis you can be sure that you will write the right thing. So scan through the question paper to see the question that you can easily answer and write down some of the points as they are coming to your mind. You can do that at the back of your answer sheet or on the last sheet, as the case may be. So this is so what do we mean by saying this? What we meant is that by the time you are looking at the question, maybe they've given you, say, 5 questions or 7 questions, answer 5. Look at everything, try to scan through, make use of that 15 minutes. Remember in the last slide, I said you are going to have 15 minutes reading time, which I know that you want to conversant with, especially getting to this level. So please make use of the 15 minutes very well. Use it to scan through the question, use it to read the instructions. At times, syllabus changes, and as syllabus changes, question requirements also change. So get familiar with the question requirement. Don't say, oh, I know how the pattern of the question will be, and so because of that, you just... So also, don't waste too much time on the question. I think I emphasized that when I was talking about section A. Make sure you allocate time to each question. When you exceed the allocated time for each question, skip that question and go to the next question. You can come back to that question later. At times, you might find yourself in a situation that maybe you just look at section A and you don't know anything. So it is possible that, I used to tell students that it is possible that you get to the examination hall and your head will just go blank. It is not village people. So if you find yourself in that situation, just calm yourself down, look at section B, look at section C, try to jot down. So if it is section B and section C, you are able to attempt first, you can easily come back to section A later. By the time you finish, and you must remember, you don't have only section A alone to attempt. You have to attempt section B and section C also. And what the examiner says is that attempt, not answer. So if you have been able to attempt it, you might not be able to score everything in section A, but make sure you don't leave it blank. Very important. So spacing, leave enough space for the question you are not very familiar with or you did not remember at the moment. So let's talk about maximizing marks. How do you maximize your mark? So, of course, one of the examiner's comments has been that candidates are advised to read the ICAN study text properly. Candidates' major pitfall was their shallow understanding of the subject matter topics. So candidates are advised to read the topic more deeply when preparing for future exams. Candidates are advised to study the topics more deeply through the ICAN study text. Candidates are advised to answer case study questions in a more structured approach. All these are what we have noticed. All these are the feedbacks that the examiners has given to us in time past about why students fail which part of the exam. And that is one of the reasons why we are here, to give you tips on what to do, on how to approach these questions when you see them in the examination or on the day when you are writing your exam. So please, it is important that you study the topics more thoroughly and make sure that you are familiar with what the examiner is saying. Next one says that make sure you read the exam instruction carefully. I think I've dealt with that in detail. Be as brief as possible while stating the main point. You can now answer later. If it is a question to say that you are meant to discuss, state the point, and in front of it you have a column, and then you go ahead to state your explanation. Write down your answers legibly and neatly, and choose questions carefully. Don't, if you know maybe that you see a question that section A, no, let's say number 2A carries 10 marks, 2B carries 10 marks, you don't know 2C, you don't know 2D, and you now have a question at the back, and you see that you know 2A, 2B, 2C, and the 2A, 2B, 2C that you know, they carry 5 marks each. That is 15 marks. Meanwhile, the first one, the first one that you see that you know, that one will fetch you 20 marks and you are certain. But meanwhile, the other number 3 that you see, that one, although you know 3A to 3C, but it will only fetch you 15 marks. Please go for the one that will fetch you more marks. Go back to your number 2, answer 2A and 2B, and be sure of your 20 marks, instead of gambling for 15 marks that you may not score the entire 15. So you have to be strategic when you are choosing your question. That's why it is called strategic financial management. So you have to be strategic in choosing your question as well, so that you can get as much mark as you can. So read the instruction, as there is no one size fits all in attempting ICAN question. All questions do come with their dynamism. Get familiar with the instruction, not the general instruction alone this time around, the instruction for each question. Get familiar with the instruction for each question and make sure you are able to answer them as ICAN, as advised by ICAN. So let me stop here and see if we have questions. I am
Wow.
happy to answer.
Thank you very much. So let's give a reaction to Ade Tokumbo. I'm clapping for him here. So let me see your round of applause for him in the chat box. Give us a reaction there, to just be sure you have been following. So while we're waiting for that, if you have just joined us, please leave your name and your where you are joining us from in the comment section, so that I can acknowledge your presence. And then there are questions that some of you have asked here. So if you have questions specifically to SFM, or this is the first time you are doing the exam, or you have specific question regarding the technique, please leave it there. All right. Thank you, Sheyi. Sheyi is giving a good round of applause there. Anu Oluwapo, thank you very much for that as well. Adewale Samuel, thank you for your round of applause. So Ade Tokumbo, thank you very much for that. Sinla, oh, okay. Welcome again, Sinla. And she's also clapping. How do we? All right. So some questions are here. Before we go into answering the question, please just let them keep coming. Stella said, great one. We quickly need to go into the exam hall. When you enter the exam hall, what specifically must you do? All right, so I'll go straight and share my screen. Keep your clap coming. I'll come and acknowledge them as we continue. Thank you very much, Father Yomi. Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Maria. Miriam, thank you very much for that. She said date for CR. Yeah, join the Telegram class. Then somebody asked, how do I join the Telegram class? We'll provide that information just before we wrap up today. Okay, let me go right ahead and share my screen. Okay, so this is a typical exam question, the way it will come in the exam. You'll see here the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria professional level exam. This is May 2021, strategic financial management. Time allowed 3 1/4 hours, including 15 minutes reading time. Instruction. Now, please always read the instruction. Please always read the instruction. Like Adetokunbo said, don't assume that you have done SFM before and you just come into the exam hall and you just go ahead and start answering it. The instruction may have changed. So this one is saying you are required to answer 4 out of 6 questions in this paper. Now, what is the implication of this? It goes on to say section A, compulsory question 40 mark, which means in this very paper, there are 6 questions. So, but section 1, which is question 1, section A, which is question 1, is compulsory and it carries 40 mark. Now, the other ones, which also mean that in section 2 or section B, you are expected to answer 3. But you see, some students do a sabi too much. They go and answer the entire questions. Right? That when you answer more than the required number of questions, what the examiner usually do or the marker do is that they look for the best that you have answered very well and they will strike it off. They look for the best and they strike it off. All right. Now, time allowed again says 3 hours and 3 hours, 1/4, 3 1/4 hours, including 15 minutes reading time. The exam is 3 hours. Then the 1/4 hours, which is 15 minutes, is reading time. How should you use that 15 minutes? Now, this is the recommendation we give to our students. Don't bother reading question 1. The 15 minutes time is not to start reading all the questions. You go straight to the requirement. And why should you go straight to the requirement? To see whether you can answer those questions. That means you go straight to session 2, session B rather, and read through the 5 questions and see the 3 that you'll be answering in that session 2. So, and when you get to, why shouldn't you bother reading session 1, question 1 or session 1? It's because the 15 minutes might not even be enough for you to read all of this, right, and understand them. So don't even bother reading even the requirement for that. Just go to session 2. And when you get to session 2, question 2, don't bother reading the body of the question, right? Just go straight to where? To the requirement. So as you get to the requirement, you'll be able to decide whether you really want to answer this question or not. For instance, this question 2 question 2A says calculate using the CAPM, that is a capital asset pricing model. GAPS PLC cost of capital as at 31st December 2019. That is 1 mark. You see, you want to decide whether you understand what CAPM means and whether this is the question you really want to go into. You go to the B part, you read that as well. You go to the C part, you read that, and then you scan through. If you are comfortable with that, fine. You can mark that yeah, you tick that this is one of the one I would like to consider. You go to question 3 and you go through the requirement also again. The requirement here is saying that discuss and provide example of the types of non-financial, ethical, and environmental issues that might influence the objective of companies. Consider the impact of these non-financial, ethical, and environmental issues on the achievement of primary financial objectives, such as the maximization of shareholders' fund. You see, this question A has 2 in 1. It has 2 in 1. It says 1, discuss and provide example. So take note of that. Discuss and provide example. So discuss this one, then you have to provide example. Then it goes on to tell you to consider the impact of this non-financial, ethical, and environmental issue we have on your on the maximization of shareholders' wealth. So you see, you have to take that into consideration. So once you read this now, you know whether you go for this or not. The B part, of course, you would have scanned through that. Remember, we're still within the 15 minutes time that you are supposed to allocate for this. Then you go to the next question, read the requirement as well. Once you have read the requirement, you find out if you can go through that. Then you go through question 5 and do the same. Then finally, you go to question 6, read the requirement. When you have done this and you find out that you can answer reasonably all of them, then you look for the one you have broader knowledge, more in-depth knowledge rather on, and the one that you can easily answer, right? So that is how you should spend the 15 minutes. Then what about the other 3 hours that you are given? We now go to the 3 hours. Remember here that you have a 3 hours. Yes, you have 3 hours here. This is it here. So how do you allocate the 3 hours? Let me go to my sheet here where I've written something on how to allocate the 3 hours here that you'll be using here. Now, if you see my screen here, you see I've already done the math here. So we have 3 hours here multiplied by 60 minutes, right? Gives us 180 minutes. So if you divide 180 minutes by 100 marks, right? By 100 marks here, then you will get 1.8 minutes, which means for every mark, you should not use more than 1.8 minutes. That means that for every 10-minute question, you should not use more than 18 minutes. Now, what Ade Tokumbo said earlier, which is very instructive, is that I will leave now. Before I go to that, this 40 mark, how long should you spend on that? You simply multiply 1.8 by 40. That means 72 minutes, 1 hour, 12 minutes. So if you are doing question 1 and you find out that 1 hour, 72 minutes, 1 hour, 12 minutes have been spent and you are still on it, just leave it and go and answer others. The longer you spend on a question, then the diminishing return will start setting in. The mark you can earn is usually at the beginning when your mind is sharp on that question. But the more time you spend to get more mark on that question, then the lesser the mark you can get. So if you go start a fresh question all again, you are more likely to get those mark for those questions, the mark for those questions. So make sure you don't spend more than 72 minutes for this. Then when you go into the requirement, you see it's further broken down. 8 mark here, 6 mark here, 6 mark here, and 5 mark here, and 10 mark here. You go and divide them the same way. So 1.8 times 8, multiplied by 8 mark. You should not spend more than 3 minutes, 3.24 minutes, approximately 3 minutes for the 1A of this question, that is 8 mark. What about the other one? 1.8 times 6. No, I think I got the other one wrong. 1.8 times 8 should give us 14 minutes, not 3 minutes. So you should not spend more than 14.4 minutes. Usually when I was doing this exam, I will leave the other 0.4 minutes out as time, extra time, so that I can use that to come back later to look through my question. I won't spend more than 14 minutes for the first one here. Then 1.8 multiplied by 6, I won't spend more than 10 minutes for the second one. And 1.8 multiplied by 5, I won't spend more than 9 minutes for the third one. And 1.8 times 10, 18 minutes for the last one. So this is how you manage your time. If you don't manage your time very well while you're in the exam hall, you're going to run into problem. Even if you know that particular one very well, make sure that you just allocate the time and stick to the time that you have allocated for it. So as we come into this as well, we see the question 2 here. You see 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark, and 5 mark. You should not use more than 1.8 minutes for each of these 1 mark. So that's what I want to say there. Then the next one you want to do once you get to the exam hall is that you want to start with the easiest, the easy question. Don't start with the toughest one, right? The one that you understand that is the easiest one is the one you should go for. And then, like what Ade Tokumbo said earlier on, let's look at this particular question 2. I think, yes, question 2. Assuming you are doing question 2, you see question 2 has son here, A, B. B has children. So it has the first one, 1, 2, 3. And then C have children. D doesn't have children. So what about if you don't even know how to calculate the first one? You don't know how to do the B part. Can you go straight and do C part in the exam? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. How do you do that? Now let me share my screen again and come and show you how you can do that conveniently in the exam. So you see on my screen here, this is not how your question answer sheet will look like. No, this is not how it will look like. but let's assume that this is what it is. So you see on my screen here, assuming that I want to start with question 3. Like Adetokunbo said earlier, you don't have to start with in chronological order. If it is question 3 that you find very easy to start with that. But your numbering is very important. So question 3 here, let me come back and see if I can pull that up here. This is question 3. It has A and B. Now, let's assume that you want to answer B, just an assumption, which is an 8-mark question, while A is a 12-mark question. So you come here, this is 3A, right? You leave space here. Remember, I told you to leave enough space. Don't come here. Don't ever do the mistake to come and start 3B on the same page. No, don't do that. Leave enough space. That's why I cross this up like this. Leave enough space. Write 3A here. Come to the next page and put 3A continue. Don't even start 3B here because you don't know whether when you start, you will still need more space. You go to the next page and start your 3B here. You can now start your 3B here and continue your 3B here if you so wish. Then you can go to 3C if the question have 3C. And if it is 3C you want to start first, remember to put your 3A, 3B, and then the next page 3B continue, and then you come to 3C. You don't necessarily have to start in a chronological order, but when you are numbering them, number them properly. Why? So that the examiner can know that all your questions follow each other. Now be aware that the marker, one marker just mark only one question if it hasn't changed. For instance, no one marker can make you pass or fail the exam. So some people will say, ICAN wants to fail me. Well, it means that all the markers conspire and want to fail you alone. And that is practically difficult to achieve. And remember, your name is also not put inside the script. So the marker does not know you, doesn't know your name. It's just your number that is there. So one marker will mark only one question 1, and he will be marking only question 1 for all the scripts. Another person will pick question 2. There might be 4 people marking just question 2. There might be 4 people marking question 3, question 4, question 5, and 6. So that's the way it is done. So it is important that you put all your, you don't start 3A here, and then the next page you now start 4B. No, you don't module it up. I want to be sure that you are following me. So in the, okay, thank you very much. So, all right, I want to be sure you are following me. Leave in the comment box your reaction, and just for me to be sure you are following me, right? So that is how you label your sheet. Then I go on again. Go for the easy mark. I've already said that. Maximize your time. You don't spend more than 1.8 minutes. And let's go. Let's calculate what is 1.8 minutes. 0.8 times 60, that is plus 60, that is 108 seconds. Right? 1.8 minutes means 108 seconds. I don't know whether they permit use of watch now or not. But if they don't, and there's a wall clock there, just time yourself. This, you will find it very, very useful. And then remember that you don't need more than 50 marks to pass the exam. So make sure that you attempt all the questions. Here, the questions, let me not even say, let me go back and just show us. The question here says, let me go back and read the instruction. It says that is a section B. You are required to answer any 3 out of 5, any 3. So attempt at least 3 questions in this session, even if you don't have the time, right? So assuming that you are in the exam hall and they say 15 minutes more, label the sheet the way I've labeled it for the way I've shown here, and attempt each question, even if it means you write the name of the let me assume, I'm just assuming here. Let me go to a new, let me assume it's question 5 you wanted to attempt. So put there question 5 and put A here. Where's my writing board? So you come here, you put, if assuming it has a sum, remember that it has a sum, you put 1 here, and then write the question here. You have attempted it. Why should you do that? Don't leave it blank without touching it at all. Why should you do that? I'll give you a story. When I was preparing for this exam many years ago, please don't quote me anywhere, but just be aware that anything that human being is behind is prone to error. So ICAN, if you look at the Pathfinder, which I'm using to do this presentation, you'll find out that ICAN will leave the disclaimer there. Let me even show us the disclaimer that ICAN always leave so that you'll see. Even this solution that comes from them, they will still leave a disclaimer. I say, although these suggested solutions have been published under the institute name, they do not represent the view of the council of the institute. The suggested solutions are entirely the responsibility of the authors, and the institute will not enter into any correspondence with them. Even this, they leave disclaimer. So what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say here is that, you see, when you get into the exam hall, try and attempt every question that you are asked to attempt. Why? There was this story I had. This is more than 20 years ago, though. It may no longer happen. But the marking scheme was wrong, which means they were using the wrong marking scheme to mark the answer. Imagine, no matter what you have written, if the marking scheme is wrong, it is wrong. You can't get the answer if the marking scheme is wrong. So there was this, my lecturer then, remember I qualified more than, is it 1997? That should be more than 25 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this thing is is many years ago. But who knows? These are behind the scene scenarios that nobody gets to know, except those who are involved, right? So this person came up and said he was marking a particular question. When he finished marking his section, he now joined other people to mark, right? Remember that they are paid per the number of script that they mark. And like Adetokunbo said earlier, make sure your writing is legible. If your handwriting is illegible, it's not, that is the examiner or the marker cannot read it properly. They can't make up what they don't understand. They will just, in fact, you make it easier for them. They just cancel whatever you have done and move to another script. So make it easy for them to mark, right? By making sure that whatever you're writing is legible. All right, what I was saying was that this guy now went to join other team. But before he joined them, he picked the question and solved the question and came up with a solution. He compared the solution to the marking scheme and they were different. And that shocked him. So he called the entire team and said, no, what I'm getting is different from this. And then they said, wow. Then they all went through it and found out that it was right. And then they said, remember, ICAN must release their question and their result at a given time. They must do that because the council member must approve it. And they travel down from all over the world to come to attend that session to approve the result. So they can't change when they will release the result, right? So now, but they have marked more than 2,000 scripts already. So they now ask now, okay, what do we do about it? They now came up with this conclusion that whoever attempted that question, give them full mark. Whoever attempted it, give them full mark. So if you never attempted it, then you can't score what you never attempted. So even if it is just the 5A, for instance, if that question was 5A, you put 5A there and you put the 1, and then you write some sentence there, you have attempted it. You'll be given full mark if that scenario comes up. I'm not promising that it comes up. Remember that that's an error, and of course, they will work hard to make sure that doesn't repeat subsequently. All right. So then make sure you don't leave space in between your empty space in between your script. You can see how I label everything here. So this is a blank space. If you have a blank space like this, just write continue next page. Please don't leave a blank space, right? Because the examiner or the marker might think that that's the end of your script. So you can see I started 2A here. Maybe I left too much space to come and start 2A. But then every space that you have left, make sure you write there, continue on next page, continue on next page, continue on next page, so that they will not assume that you have given, you have left some blank space. All right, I'm just running through my notes to see if there's any other thing I've left out. So, yeah, so I think I'll stop sharing then. Adetokunbo, you please share your own screen so that we can bring this to. Yeah, are you there, Adetokunbo? So before we now answer the question and answer session. Now, the next thing I want to address is what material should you use when preparing for this exam? Like SFM, if you see the SFM pack, it's very voluminous. I'm not here with it. I think it's about, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 900 pages, if I'm not mistaken. So you see, 900 pages is a lot of material to go through. Then you see other students outside the park, they will start adding other material, workout, SFM. I'm not saying that they are bad. No, I'm not saying they are bad. But the problem is that when you accumulate so much volume of material, you'll be scared. It will frighten you. Now, that's why we came up with the video lectures. So if you are on this call and you don't know about the video lecture, I'll tell you briefly about it, right? So if you are not on our Telegram platform, WhatsApp the number on the screen. Just send a WhatsApp to that number on the screen, and then we will contact you. We'll send a link to you. If we are unable to do it today, we'll do it on Monday or during the work days, right? So you either call. If we are not able to pick your call, we will definitely get back to you, right? So you either WhatsApp or you send SMS, any of that. Now let me go back to video lecture. Why does Starry go do video lecture? About 12 years ago, we run physical classes. But you see, while we're running physical classes, as at 2010, the stock market crashed as at that time, and people lost their job. The banks were retrenching, and financial sector was badly hit. Now, so those who were working, remember that when they retrench people, if you are 10 people working in that department and they retrench 7, the remaining 3 people will be doing the job of every other person, isn't it? I think that's what will happen. So there will be workload. So they started missing class because they couldn't come for classes because of work. And you need the work to pay your bill. You need the work to pay your bill, right? But when we came out with the video lecture, we found out that those who get the video lecture were performing better than those. Okay, John said you cannot hear me. Okay, you can hear me now. We found out that those who get our video lecture perform better than those who come for physical classes. And the simple reason was because those who go for physical classes, sometimes they miss class because of work, sometimes because of rain, sometimes because of traffic, or sometimes because of ill health. So there may be legitimate reason to miss it. But whenever you miss a physical class, the lecturer they don't normally repeat those classes. They don't normally repeat those classes. That's why we now found out that those who use video lecture perform better than those who go for physical classes. And secondly, the research said that if you use video to study, you will save your time by about 60%, which means if you have 1 hour to study, 60% of the time will be saved when you use video lecture. So you want to get our video lecture, that's the number on the screen for you to contact. Send your WhatsApp, send SMS, or give a call. Any of these 3 will definitely get back to you. Now, when you get this video lecture, what does it comprises of? It comprises of the lecture that covers the entire syllabus. We do our best to make sure that we cover the entire syllabus. So I can reasonably say we covered 95% of the syllabus. Let me not say 100% because no one material cover 100% of the syllabus. No one material does that. So, but like I said earlier, you don't need 100% to cover the syllabus. You don't need 100 mark. You need just 50 mark. So the remaining 5% might be contemporary issue, and we keep updating the video lecture every diet. But that's not only that. Then we pick the past questions for more than 12 diets since 2014. We solve them one by one, show you all the hidden parts, how to answer them in the exam. We solve them, and that means you have more than 12 diet past questions that we have solved in the video lecture. That's the second one. The third one is that we pick the ICAN pack and extracted all the questions in the ICAN pack, and we recorded them and provide them for you as well. So that's the other thing that we also did. Once you get the video lecture, those are the things you will get. But that's not only that, you will get the blueprint. The blueprint is what we have also done that will help you cover the entire SFM syllabus within 30 days. So if you are pressed for time, if you have done this exam before and you have failed, the whole idea is, and you don't have time, then get the video lecture. Use the blueprint. Then within 30 days, you would have had a rough idea of what the syllabus cover. Then go through it the second time before the exam again. And then if you go through the video lecture at least 2 times before the exam, you definitely should pass this exam. Then once you have gone through it at least 2 times before the exam, right? 2 times before the exam, then you can add every other material that you have. But we always advise you put all those material aside first, right? Adetokunbo, okay, let me share my own screen. Um, let me share my own screen since Adetokunbo is stop sharing. Okay. Okay, let me share my own screen. So if you want to get this video lecture, just make sure that you call the number on the screen, right? Contact the number on the screen so that you can get it. Then lastly, if you want to join our Telegram classes, also do the same. Send a WhatsApp to this number. We'll definitely get back to you. So as I bring this webinar to a close, I want to go and answer some of the questions that you have put there. Yes, Adetokunbo, are you still there with us? I see that you have gone off the screen. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Oh, beautiful. All right. So some of the question, let me stop sharing my screen. Oh, did I even share it in the first place? Yeah, I did. Oh, I wasn't.
No, I think I'm sharing my screen,
Oh, you are sharing your screen. Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine.
but I can stop sharing if you
Okay.
want me to.
Yes, you can stop sharing. You can stop sharing. Okay, good. So, um, yeah, John said, can I put 3A and 3B on the same page if I have finished answering 3A and there is still space on the page? Yes, you can do that, but usually I don't advise that, right? Because sometimes you have finished answering a particular question. While you're answering other question, more idea will now flash into your mind. So if you now go back to add that, you now find out that you have already, yes, I even did that. Okay, I hope I can share my screen. I even did that here, and let me not share my screen again. I discourage that. So you see, you have paid for the exam, so don't be. You have paid for the papers. Don't be economical with those with the script. Ask for as many scripts as you need in the exam. All right, let me go ahead again. Faith, how do we apportion time to session and question? I think I've answered that. Those the mark that is allocated to each question and session, just multiply it by 1.8. That's the maximum time you must spend there in terms of minutes. So if the question says 10 mark, then multiply 10 by 1.8, which is maximum of 18 minutes. I think I've answered that. Then this other person said, Henry said the last exam session A, 30 mark, compulsory, session B, 20 mark to attempt 2, and session C, 15 mark, attempt 2. Well, that's the essence of answering and going through the instruction. Like we said earlier, make sure you read the instruction. It could change from diet to diet. The one I've just showed us is answer 4 out of 6, and the number 1 is compulsory, right? So make sure you take notes of that. Then Father Yomi, question from Father Yomi. Thanks for the gesture. Very useful. No doubt. Please, how can one join the Telegram class? Yes, the number that I shared on our screen, which I'll still share before we go again. Then another one, I'm just scrolling down to see the question that is being asked here. Let me go here, try to refresh. Yeah, if you are not hearing us very well, just refresh. How do we, okay, apportion time? I've answered that. Um, Another question here, please, sir. Does it mean that SFM also entail report writing? So, Adetokunbo, that's a question for you. Does it mean that SFM also entail report writing?
Yeah, so thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. And thank you for everyone for joining us this webinar jam. So, yes, there are times that you have questions on SFM that will demand you to write a report. So, for instance, like I said, it's not all the time, but definitely, especially in section one. Remember, I said that for section one, anything and everything is possible. You can get any question for section one so far as related to the syllabus. So yes, there are times that they will ask you to write a report, but as much as you are writing the report, you will still have to calculate So they will start by you saying, calculating, by saying that you should calculate some metrics. After calculating the metrics is when you will now be asked to write a report based on the metrics that you have calculated. So the difference between that and case study is that for case study, you might have been given the financial statement to analyze, you might have been given all the report that you will use, all the necessary documents, all the necessary information you need to write your reports. But for SFM, you will be the one to calculate those metrics. You'll be the one to calculate those metrics, and then you will now be asked to write a report based on what you have calculated. It's just similar to when I was explaining recommendation, that when you are asked to recommend, that your recommendation should be based on your calculation, and there should be no difference between the two. So yes, it is possible for you to have a question on report writing in SFM.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So Kehinde said, if it happens that there's a mistake in the solution that we have already put down, can we just wrong it, or what can we do? Yes, when you are in the exam hall, yes, there will be mistakes when you are writing. Once you are working and you realize that you have made a mistake, you can strike out that one that you have identified and then move on. But when you have finished that particular question and you now realize that what you will go through is much, right? What would be my advice? Just move to another question, right? Like I did in the allocation of time. So if you are supposed to use 14.7 minutes, use 14 minutes. Make sure you save time as much as you can, right? In other question, in other places, then you can come back. You can come back to that question. But if you find out that you make a mistake and the mistake is something you can quickly correct, then go ahead. Is there any other question here? Is there any other question? I cannot see any other. So we want to bring this to a close now. Like I said, if you have not gotten our video lecture, just contact that screen and what you have on the screen. If you are not on our Telegram classes are free. They are free. They are free to you, whether you buy our video lecture or not. It's our own contribution to your success. We want you to pass. So we want it to be mentioned that when you are telling your ICAN success story, that we contributed to your success. That's the greatest joy we all have in Starry Go. Both our lecturers and our team members, that's the greatest joy. At the end of the day, when people come and say, yes, I passed, it gives us joy. We share in that joy. You understand? Now, if you have done this exam before, I want to say don't give up. Don't give up. Go and do the right thing. So like I said, some people will come out. The brilliant student don't necessarily pass this exam. The average student that follow instruction pass this exam. Why did I say that? When I started this ICAN exam, I was an average student. I remember that time, this company I worked for, in fact, I was afraid of starting ICAN. Why? Because 10 people in the finance department will go to do the exam. When the result comes, 10 people will fail. Everybody will fail. I said, what kind of exam is this? That it's not that everybody is that shallow now. But you see, when I started going for lecture, and I asked a lot of questions, and I solved a lot of past questions. Remember, the exam is all about past questions. That's why we did the question and answer videos, right? So that the explanation can be given. If you are using a Pathfinder, good, right? But when there are some issues you don't understand the Pathfinder, how do you get that? Nobody to explain to you. But if you're using a video lecture, if you don't understand what you are going through, come to the Telegram class. A lecturer will definitely come out there to help you. So Kehinde say, how do we get the video lecture? Yeah, just look at just look at the screen there and send a WhatsApp to any of that number, and we will get back to you. All right. On this note, we want to bring to a close. Yes, go ahead.
Before you wrap up, sir, I think we have about 2 people who are requesting to speak. Is it fine to allow them to speak?
No, because of the technology involved here, we rather just they send their text message down.
Yeah, maybe they can send a chat.
Yeah, just send a chat here instead of speaking, because if your data is if your internet is not very strong, it could disrupt what we are doing. So if you have any question, drop it here. And if you have not answered your question, make sure that you drop it in the Telegram class. Then Adetokunbo is always available and almost always willing to help. All right. I want to thank every one of you for joining this session and for coming on board. Thank you for your time as we bring this webinar to a close. So make sure you share this link to others that have not yet joined. And it's free. If you find it valuable, let us know. Give us your feedback. And if there's any other thing you want us to do, let us know. Father Yomi, say much appreciated. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much, Father Yomi. Kehinde said thanks. Stella said thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Stella. Let us get your feedback. So I want to commit you to God's hand as you go and do this diet. This SFM will be the last time you will be doing it. So make sure you get the right material, which is a video. A video lecture is one of them, and it is the shortest course. Once you get the video, I wish I could tell you that once you get the video, that's all you need. No, you have to go through it at least 2 times before the exam. You say, yes, but I have other materials. Put those materials aside. Go through the video lecture at least 2 times. When you have finished them, right, and you still have time, then add all those other material that you have. When you add all those other material, then you can then go ahead and do the exam. Why should you go through it 2 times? You see, when you are listening to music, and you even the music you don't like, when you listen to it over and over and over, after some time, the music will start playing back in your mind. So some student tells us that when they get to the exam or they usually hear the lecturer reading the answers to them. Well, how does that really work? It means that they have gone through similar question in the video lecture, either past question or the ICAN part question and answer that we have solved. And so when they saw similar question, they remember the intonation of the lecturer. And so it makes them to remember that very much. So that's why we recommend that you go through it at least 2 times. So thank you very much, Kehinde Sinla. Thank you. She said thanks here. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you. All right, Adetokunbo, I don't know if you have any other final word for our people before we close the class.
Thank you very much, everyone. Once again, on behalf of Starry Gold Academy and, of course, SFM students, we appreciate everybody. Thank you for taking our time to join this webinar jam. And like Mr. Stephen has rightly said, I believe that if you find it useful, please do well to share it to everyone. Share it to your colleague who are writing this diet and even the ones that will write it in diets to come. And of course, do well to get our videos, the video lecture. And like he said, the emphasis is not that if you don't get a video lecture, you won't pass, but we recommend, one of our recommendations and advice is that you get the video lecture. And of course, we believe that if you by doing this, you are on your way to success. So thank you also, Mr. Stephen, for your time. And of course, I wish everyone the very best in this forthcoming exam. And if you have any question, please do well to find your way to our Telegram page. Ask all the questions you can ask there. I myself am on the page. We also have professionals who has even passed SFM who are still on the platform to even answer your question as it is being asked. So I wish everyone the very best of the diet, and of course, may the good Lord go with you. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.